Thank you very much. A whirlwind tour of demography and all its complexities, and also a nice link to environmental issues. So thanks a lot. Our next speaker is Flavia Pansieri. She was appointed Executive Coordinator of the United Nations Volunteers Program in February 2008. Over the past 25 years, she's held a number of increasingly responsible positions in the UN system from all over the world, Yemen, China, Laos, and Bangladesh. Let me tell you just a little bit about the Volunteers Program. It's administered by the UNDP. It's based here in Bonn and supports sustainable development globally through the promotion of volunteerism, including the mobilization of volunteers across the globe. UNV emphasizes that achieving the Millennium Development Goals will require the ingenuity, solidarity, and creativity of millions of ordinary citizens through voluntary action. Flavia has a doctoral degree in philosophy from Milan University and one in Chinese language and literature from Venice University. And it's an absolute delight to have her here today to tell us about UNV. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me start first of all, participants, fellow panel members, colleagues, to thank IHDP and the organizers for inviting me to this event. It isn't perhaps prima facie obvious why UNV should be here. And the reason is very simple. We talk about this policy decision makers. You are an extremely important research community to provide the scientific evidence for the policy decisions that we hope need to be taken and have to be taken. But we shouldn't forget the human dimension, which is what this program is all about. And this means people. So I would like to bring the voice of the 8,000 volunteers that every year serve all over the world to promote peace and development, and the 4,000 plus who serve in their home countries but online for the same goals. We know that environment is a huge challenge. You'll be discussing it in the next 3-4 days. But we shouldn't forget also that in this context we are facing the 3F crisis, the financial, food and fuel crisis, which is impacting on governments and decision makers, donors, developing countries alike to achieve the MDGs, and including, of course, MDG 7 about environmental sustainability. So what to do about that? We cannot just leave this matter in the hands of governments alone. We just have to, so to speak, roll up our sleeves as researchers, as citizens, as engaged individuals, and play our role, whether it is through advocacy or through direct action, and supporting the taking of adequate policy decisions. We also, as individuals, have a particular important role to play in holding our governments accountable as we work towards progress in achieving the Millennium Development Goals and towards environmental sustainability, not to forget that this has to be taken within the context of a human rights-based approach, and that therefore there is no way to continue to function as a global society unless we respect the rights of all, the rights of those whose voices often are not heard. In order to make them more hearable, that's why individual citizens' engagement through volunteerism becomes a very important action to undertake. I'd like to, therefore, hope to convince you of the importance of voluntary action also, and perhaps in particular in the context of addressing issues of climate change. Let's not forget how much of the initial spur that the whole environmental movement had did come from voluntary actions, from groups, non-governmental organizations, often staffed with people who were not salaried, but were doing it because they believed in what they were doing. So I would like to say a few words about volunteerism can be a powerful means of engaging people in tackling development challenges, and particularly environmental ones. But I would also like to address the point, which is very much in the context of this open meeting, of how voluntary action becomes a tool to address issues of social exclusion, and therefore by allowing everyone to participate promotes the human rights-based approach to development that we in the UN think is an essential premise for sustainability. I would like to say just a few words about the demographic changes because I'm not a demographer and I don't want to step on anyone's much more competent toes. I would like, however, to look at the positive role that inclusion plays, particularly in the case of youth. We've seen how much the ongoing growth of population really is a result of fertility rates that yet haven't tapered off. And what this means is, yes, obviously we want to invest in health and education, we must, but we need to find the resources to do that. And how do we do it for a growing population if we don't leverage the energy of this very population to contribute to economic growth, to realize the GDP growth that then will allow investments in health and education and sanitation and so on. And finally, I would like to take advantage of this podium to issue a call for more research on the social dimensions of volunteerism and how this can be a supportive element in what we all are striving to achieve. Now, I will not go into how many we will be in 10 or 15 or 50 years. This is really not the point. The point I want to make, however, is that, and this I'm quoting from the United Nations Millennium Project report in 2005, environmental sustainability is the foundation on which strategies for achieving the other Millennium Development Goals must be built, because environmental degradation is causally linked to problems of poverty, hunger, gender inequality, and health. So we not only know that, of course, they are all connected, the various goals, but that really environment has a key role to play to make the other ones achievable. And if we look at the large bottom of the demographic pyramid, which is in developing countries typically very large and tapering off quite rapidly towards older age, we need to be very mindful that while obviously it does represent a challenge, we have a responsibility to respond to the health, education, growth, employment needs of this young population. They're also a resource, and we should not just look at them as being the problem, but also a part of the solution. I was looking at the demographics for this conference, and over close to 42% are people in the 30 to 39 age bracket. So people who are young and clearly an interest in making sure that we keep a sustainable planet. And, but also that bring the enthusiasm, the values, the beliefs, the energy that comes from youth. So I think it's really important to look at the demographic transition as offering also opportunities to leverage youth enthusiasm, and by allowing them to become socially engaged to promote their social inclusion, their civic sense, their sense of belonging. And of course, these are all elements that become extremely important in terms of ensuring societal stability, the maintenance of the social texture, and therefore peace. We know how many conflicts are really environment related, whether it is access to village level water source or broad country to country conflicts on, again, water comes to mind as one of the most important resources for people's subsistence.